This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Week 13 Football Night in America podcast. Maria Taylor alongside Matthew Berry, Mike Florio, Devin McCourty, and Jason Garrett here with you. And let's start with a game that we all had our eyes on. The Eagles going on the road to take on Baltimore. Ultimately, the Eagles would fly and get their 8th straight win. We saw Saquon Barkley with 107 rushing yards, and they were able to slow down this Baltimore offense that we haven't seen slow down a lot, Matthew. What did you take away from this game?
I mean, two things. I think number one is that Saquon Barkley is very much in this MVP race. I think a lot of people were saying, like, can a running back really win the MVP race? But goes into Baltimore, beats them, and, like, he was so crucial down the stretch in the fourth quarter. I don't know that he's going to win it, but I think he's got to be the favorite, certainly as well. Baltimore, that was the biggest takeaway, was just how impressive Saquon is, and also this Eagles defense. Baltimore didn't score in the second half until the very last sort of drive when the game was a little bit decided. And so Philadelphia just seems like a complete team to me. And the Ravens are suddenly now, they're going to make the playoffs, but like this was a tough game, right? I mean, Justin Tucker misses 3 kicks. All their losses have been by 7 points or less. And you get into the playoffs, and then, that's where the margin of error is so thin, and the Ravens just the last couple of years haven't been able to get over that hump over those small margins, and just we're seeing that play out again this year.
I've learned some valuable lessons about the Ravens over the past year or so, especially as it relates to playing under the lights, playing against NFC teams. It started last year when I thought the 49ers would dismantle the Ravens, and the Ravens went out there on Christmas and won. Yep. Then there was a Monday night game against Tampa Bay earlier this year. I thought Tampa Bay would win. The Ravens won. Last Monday night, Chargers game. Well, I picked the Chargers, and the Ravens won. So I learned all my lessons. There's no way. Lamar Jackson, a big game against an NFC team, 23-1 against the NFC, under the lights, even though it was a late afternoon game, had that. And,
same aura.
And there it goes. The Eagles, and I think that shows how impressive the Eagles are, that they were able to go in there and beat Lamar Jackson, who rises to a higher level against NFC teams that don't see him all the time. We talked about that after they beat the Bucs. They're not used to him. They figured out a way to slow him down, slow that team down. They got away from Derrick Henry, missed kicks, that's it, and the Ravens lose. And they're not going to miss the playoffs, but they're not going to be the 5 seed the way they're going. They're going to be 6 or 7. And if you're 7, you got to go face the number 2 seed on the road to start the playoffs, and that's a recipe for a one and done.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that sticks out, because we talked about it, like you said, when you go against Lamar Jackson, you're not used to seeing a quarterback like that. But Philadelphia has a guy, Jalen Hurts, that you see all the time in training camp. He's not the same speed as Lamar Jackson, but the ability to run, the ability to keep plays alive. They've seen that all training camp. And I thought one of the impressive things I saw from the defense was they let some of those athletes be free. Zach Braun, Nolan Smith, those guys are rushing, and they're coming heavy after Lamar Jackson. We've seen Lamar Jackson make teams pay all the time. You pressure him, you get to him, he makes somebody miss, he's out of there. Philly got him down on the ground, and that's the key to beating Baltimore. And I agree with all you guys said. Baltimore has to figure out what they need to do. It was the pass defense before. Pass defense has gotten a little bit better. Now you look and you lose 7 points because of missed field goals, an extra point. So all of these different things that are going on. And I know after the game, Harbaugh said it wouldn't be wise to, think about moving on from Tucker. To me, you got a practice squad for a reason. You bring in another kicker. You have to see how the week goes. Like, nobody is above week to week in the NFL, game to game, season to season. That's how the NFL operates. Doesn't take away from Justin Tucker. He's been an unbelievable kicker, one of the best of all time. But for this season, they need more out of him if he's going to be their kicker.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the practice squad is the way to go with that, Dev. Get somebody in there. Justin Tucker is still your kicker. You're going to still believe in him, instill that belief in him. But if he continues to miss these kicks, it's 10 this year. That's too many. And you're going to play close games down the stretch. Not going to be good. But I'd love to talk about Philly. I keep going back to 10-1 last year, and then one of the worst collapses we've seen in a long, long time. And they start off this year 2-2. Sirianni's talking to the crowd, all that kind of stuff. People are tired of them, and they've rattled off 8. And you look at their team and you say, they addressed some issues. They brought Kellen Moore in to run the offense, Vic Fangio in to run the defense. Both units seem completely settled. Both units seem to have a plan. They're talented. Really good offensive line, tight end, receivers, runners off the charts, quarterback playing well. The defense, they got guys on all 3 levels. So it's a really good team, but I think it's bigger than that. Yes. I think the fact that he's gotten it's all kind of settled there now. They're focused. They're playing together. And they're going to be a tough out because when you run the ball and play defense, you can go anywhere and play and have success, and that's what they're doing.
You know, it's interesting here. They won this game without Devontae Smith, who's a big piece of their offense too, which is really impressive. And I just, again, going back to Saquon Barkley and just, you know, possibly the free agent signing of the offseason as well. In the history of the NFL, here's the entire list of players with 1,700 yards or more from scrimmage in their first 12 games of a season. Saquon Barkley and Eric Dickerson. That's it. That's the list. So Saquon got there today. He's just been so terrific. And look at the Ravens' upcoming schedule here. We talk about them. They're 8-5, but to your point, Mike, right? So they're on a bye next week. Okay, fine. So they get some time. Then they get out of the bye and they're at the Giants. Okay, fine. But then they're home to Pittsburgh. That's a tough game. They're at Houston. Houston, that's no easy. And then they're home to Cleveland to finish it off. And I know the Brown season hasn't gone the way it is, but AFC North battles, like Cleveland's not going to roll over in that game.
The Browns beat them early.
Yeah, I know. You know. So, I mean, like, it doesn't get easier. And like I said, I don't think they're missing the playoffs. But if they're the 6th or 7th seed and they've got to go to, say, Buffalo or Kansas City, whoever potentially a 2 seed is, like, that's tough for a team that, you know, obviously has Super Bowl aspirations.
Let's talk about the Steelers, though, because that's a team that is certainly cooking right now in the AFC. Russell Wilson, his third 400 career passing game, we also saw was the second highest passing game that he's ever had. And it seems as though this is a team that's finding its identity with Russell Wilson at the helm. They're 5-1, Jason, and the offense, them scoring 44 points, you're like, that's the Steelers that we're talking about? And it is, but it looks a little bit different the way that they're winning games.
The identity is that they can do it different ways. You know, there's this image that I have of the Steelers, play great defense, run the ball, play action pass, all of that. They go into Cincinnati. I mean, it was the opposite of that. They threw the ball all over the place. 10 different receivers caught it, over 400 yards. And Russ looked young and spry and making plays in the pocket, throwing the ball at all different levels, making the plays out in space. So to me, it was a really, really impressive and eye-opening victory. And then they get ahead, and the Steelers do what they do. They knock the ball out, they scoop it up, they run it in, whatever. So if they can do that, along with their commitment to run the football, they're going to be tough as we come down the stretch.
And you think about this comes off of a rough game against the Cleveland Browns. We watched this team, and it's like, okay, how are they going to manufacture offense? What are they going to do in the red zone? Justin Fields has a package. Are we going to see more of that? And they come out, and Russell Wilson's like, hey, guys, hold on. Just hold on. I'm going to throw for 400 yards. We'll put 44 points on the board, and we're going to win by everybody doing something to help this team, whether it's T.J. Watt, whether it's Herbig. Like, this team has so many dynamic players. And, again, every year we talk about it, and last year there was a time where people were talking about, do they move on from Mike Tomlin? Does Mike Tomlin move on from them? And now we're sitting here like, oh, yeah, Mike Tomlin proves us again. He's a great coach. He's doing everything. This team just is starting to get that feeling of, hey, can they start to produce after Thanksgiving throughout December and become one of those teams that gets hot and then goes and plays good football in the playoffs?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Devin, because I usually am. When Najee Harris spoke to you after the game, he said that Russell did a good job of getting them out of bad plays today.
Yep.
I think that's significant because they're trying to strike a very delicate balance with Russell Wilson. They want him to do what they want him to do, but they don't want him to try too much. They don't want him to do hero ball. That's why we see the sprinkling of Justin Fields. It's partially a reminder to Russ, if you do too much, we're going to go with Justin Fields. And they're trying to kind of you can sense from time to time, Fields to be the guy because he's younger and they can get more out of him if he's the guy after this year. And Russ, in the aftermath of the game in Cleveland, goes to Cincinnati 2 days after he turns 36, and he has one of the best games he's had in years. I think that they've pushed his buttons. You know, we talk about how the Lions pushed the buttons on Jared Goff to make him what he is. They've been pushing the buttons on Russ, and I think Russ is becoming better than they ever expected.
You know the respect I have for you, Florio. I mean, it's immense, right?
But he's going to push my buttons.
This is such a coach. You got to layer it. It's a compliment. Yeah, a dig, a compliment.
They're not playing Justin Fields to push Russell.
Yeah, they are.
Russell threw it 48 times today.
I know, but last week, that Thursday night game, the Justin Fields package is there. I know this for a fact. It's there to keep Russ from playing hero ball. It's there. If Russ does too much, they'll use more Justin Fields.
Yeah, I get that, but Russell Wilson's the quarterback. Mike Tomlin said, when they were winning games with Justin Fields, Russell Wilson is going to be our quarterback. And you put him in there, and they've won, 5 or 6.
5-1.
5 out of 6 since he's been the starting quarterback. He threw for 414 today. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's attacked different ways. I think it's forced defense to say, okay, now you got to spend some time defending Russell Wilson, and you also got to spend some time defending this Justin Fields quarterback run package.
It worked today because Cincinnati
Absolutely. It's a good formula.
Maybe they learned their lesson against Cleveland, because you could argue if they didn't use Justin Fields as much as they did, they'd have won that game. That 3rd and 6 play, he's throwing the ball down to Fields and George Pickens. What the hell is that?
That was a bad play, but I'm with Coach here. They use Justin Fields because he has a very specific set of skills that maybe Russell Wilson doesn't have at the moment, like the speed of Justin Fields. Like when they were trying to ice the game, they used it. They designed a run for him. He gets the first down. Game over. We've talked a lot about Russell
Call
Wilson.
your source. Put your source on speaker.
I mean, you guys can have your opinion. I've talked to people in Pittsburgh, and they told me these things. I'm not pulling it out of my ass.
The cream rises to the top after Thanksgiving, just so you guys know.
I just want to say this. We've talked a lot about the Steelers' offense and Russell, and he's been brilliant, and they've gotten other guys to contribute as well. You get Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson, some of these other guys, along with Pickens and the running backs. But, again, this Steelers' defense, and I know it's hard to say, like, the Steelers' defense, they give up 38 to the Bengals, so I get it. But Joe Burrow, who's playing at an MVP level, has an interception. He gets 2 fumbles. He takes 4 sacks in this game. Like, the Bengals' offense is playing as well as any team in the NFL. And Joe Burrow is having one of these unbelievable, magical seasons that no one is appreciating because the team is disappointed in terms of the win-loss record. But it's one of those, like, I'm trying to think of Chris McCaffrey on the Panthers. Is this, Charles Barkley back in the day, like just a great player on a team that isn't performing up to the standards of his play, because Burrow has been nothing short of brilliant this year. This is unbelievable, this stat here. They are the first team, the Bengals are the first team in NFL history to lose 4 games in a season when scoring 33 or more points. It's their 4th loss this year when they scored 30 or more points. That's the most in the NFL. The rest of the league have 3 such games combined. The rest of the league have 3 games where a team has lost scoring over 30 points. The Bengals have 4 losses on their own with over 30. And so it's just, they've got a lot of soul searching to do on the defensive side of the ball, but that offense is brilliant, and it just feels a shame that Joe Burrow in that offense, the performance this year has just been wasted.
Well, it seems like for the 2nd year in a row, we could be in a situation where the Bengals are not in the playoffs and Chris Sims is sitting at home like, but I picked them to play in a Super Bowl, and he's not even here to defend himself.
Maybe he can go on vacation with them.
Maybe he can, yeah. Cancun. Okay, let's talk about Arizona and Minnesota, because the Vikings had to kind of battle back in this one. Florio, you had to leave the room in order for them to actually take the lead, but when you came back, they did get the victory. And there were times when we were looking and we were like, I don't know, they're outgaining the Vikings. Something's wrong here, but how did they still manage to pull out this win?
It was bend but don't break defense, and they made plays when they had to. And then I think that prepared them for the last drive when they went ahead with 1.5 minutes left, and they put the clamps on the Cardinals when they needed to. And, Sam Darnold wasn't spectacular. The Boo Birds were out. But when the game was on the line, first time in his career, he came back from a 13-point deficit or more to win a game. So they got focused when they had to. They turned it on when they needed to. And I can't believe they're 10-2. And every week I say, this can't last, this can't last.
Believe it!
But Kirk Cousins is coming to town next week after throwing 4 interceptions today, no touchdown passes, 6 interceptions the last 3 games, and they know him. And Derwin James told me that what the Chargers did to Cousins was confused him by showing him different looks. Well, that's what Brian Flores does every game. They're going to be ready for Cousins. And I know he may have some extra, adrenaline going back to Minnesota, but they're going to be ready for him. And today was a good sign for the Vikings based on how they came back and how Cousins played, because I think it could come together perfectly for them next week. And then they're going to be 11-2.
But they're going to have some different looks, because as well as they know Cousins knows that defense. He knows the different guys. But the key for Minnesota today is situational football. The Cardinals were 1 of 6 in the red zone. They moved the ball up and down the field, but you walk away with only 1 touchdown. We used to always say this: make them kick field goals, we'll stay in the game. Make them kick, and that's what Minnesota did. They stayed in the game because they kicked field goals, and when they needed it, 4th down, Darnold finds Justin Jefferson. Another big play, he finds Addison. Like, they made the big plays in the moments, but credit their defense. Wasn't their best day, but when they had it, when they needed it, They played well in the red zone, and if you can do that in the NFL, you're going to give yourselves a chance to win, and it showed today for them.
Yeah, and there's a couple ways to look at these games. You can say, oh, it was ugly, we're showing our warts, all that kind of stuff. Or, like you said, when it became nut-cutting time, the defense made stops, the quarterback went down and drove the ball, and they won the game. And you can hang your hat on that going forward. Kansas City's been doing it all year long. It's that can-do spirit, and it gets a little infectious in your team. We've been here before. It doesn't matter what's happened up to this point. It matters what we do now. And when you've won 10 out of 12, you're doing that a lot. It's a good thing for the Vikings.
And they didn't panic either. That's the other thing, to your point. Like, they didn't panic like some teams that haven't been this level of success before. Sam Darnold has 104 passing yards in the fourth quarter. Aaron Jones, normally so reliable, has the bad fumble, has a bad drop, but they go right back to him, scores the winning touchdown at the end. They didn't panic. They stuck to it. They didn't suddenly pull Aaron Jones, suddenly try to do different things. They stayed with their game plan here. And you know what? Credit the defense as well. To your point, Devin, they really held them tight in the red zone as well. Kyler Murray, who'd been playing really well for much of the, has 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter. And, in that fourth quarter, Sam Darnold outplayed Kyler Murray. Kyler needs to be better, unfortunately, for the Cardinals. It was a tough day for him. And credit the Vikings defense because they got after him. He was under pressure. Kyler was a lot.
And this team has an energy about them. I went there a couple of weeks ago to interview Justin Jefferson, and they're in practice. It's a Friday practice, but it's laughs, it's jokes. Everybody's having a good time as they're preparing and going through their kind of last run through. And I think when teams have that energy, you said it, you get in these games, there's panic everywhere else, but you look on their sideline, Kevin O'Connell's calm, Brian Flores is calm. And that leads to the guys on the field. They're calm, like, hey, coach is going to give us a play that's going to hit. Let's just stay on it, and it showed today.
And that's important. Cam Bonin told me that they're all friends, that there isn't any frustration. If the offense is having a down day and the defense is having a good day, so be it. If the defense is off and the offense, whatever. It doesn't matter, and they don't feel that. Even when the boos are coming down, they don't feel it. They band together, and you can't manufacture that. I guess you can manufacture it if you have the right coaches in place, but once the foundation's there, the whole locker room follows it.
So are all the Vikings fans as fickle as you and consistently disappointed even if they have 10 wins? And
no one's as fickle as Florio.
50 years of scar tissue.
It's fair. Last one though, because I love my stats here. Just a shout out to Justin Jefferson, by the way, so clutch down that final drive. Over 1,000 receiving yards. He now has 1,000 receiving yards in his first 5 NFL seasons. There's only 3 other people in the NFL that have done that: Mike Evans, Randy Moss, A.J. Green. Hell of a list to be on.
Incredible. Let's move on to our speed round. We're going to do a scale of 1 to 10 on your confidence level for these statements. The Bucs will win the NFC South over the Falcons. Right now, they are both 6-6, but the Falcons own the tiebreak.
On a scale of 1 to 10, give me an 8. Tampa Bay's playing really well. Baker's playing well. They found something with Bucky Irving. The defense is playing better. And look at their upcoming schedule. They play the Raiders, at the Chargers, at Dallas, home again to Carolina, home to New Orleans. Other than the game at the Chargers, those are all very winnable games for the Buccaneers. Meanwhile, Atlanta just doesn't look right. And they've got the tough game, as you mentioned, next week against the Vikings. I think the Buccaneers win this division.
Yeah, 7.5, and it's more about, I think the Falcons are in the process of regressing. And that question comes up of, do you make the quarterback change? At what point, if this continues? No touchdowns, 6 interceptions through 3 games, 3 straight losses. At what point do you say we have to shake things up? I don't know. The Chiefs went through a rough stretch in November of 2017, and some were saying, put in the kid from Texas Tech and let's see what he can do. And if the Falcons feel like they're just not going to make the playoffs, I don't know, Coach, at what point do you pull the trigger?
Not right now. I think, you've seen Kirk Cousins play at a high level throughout his career, and he's played at a high level here in Atlanta. So I think you let him play through it a little bit. I think, again, my big thing with quarterbacks is take some burden off of them. Give the kid from Texas the ball a lot, take some pressure off him in the passing game. Sometimes they get into that mode of drop back, and everything's collapsing around him. So for me, it's like get the running game going, move him a little bit, take a little pressure off him, and get those weapons. They still have really good weapons on their offense. So to me, I think you ride it out a little bit longer.
Yeah, and going back to it on the scale, I'm a 9. I think we just talked about it. Tampa's finding ways to win. You go against the Giants, not a good football team, you go blow them out. Carolina's playing better, played good against Kansas City, played well again. finding ways to win. You get in overtime, you miss a field goal, then you get a strip, you get the ball back, and you end the game. So I think Tampa, they're battle-tested. They've had some adversity. They're finding ways to win, and I think that serves you well going down the end of the season.
Yeah, I didn't answer the question. I think it's more like an 8 for me, and I love the quarterback. You know, you see Carolina go ahead at the end of the game. You look at how much time is left. Okay, you're down 3. There's 30 seconds to go. Then you look up, and they're kicking the game-tying field goal. So he's got a little bit of that spirit about him that's contagious on that team.
All right, confidence scale 1 to 10. Seahawks have turned a corner and will win the NFC West.
I'm going to say a 6. Credit Mike McDonald because he's turned that defense around in Seattle, played really well. It was a nice win on the road at New York, but man, oh man, look at their upcoming schedule. They're at Arizona, a now angry Cardinals team, home to Green Bay, home to Minnesota, at Chicago, at the Rams. It's a really tough schedule coming up, so I'm going to say a 6. I think they got a shot, but the Rams are right there. Arizona's not out of it. You know, I'm going to say a 6 that they win the division.
I'm going to say a 5, and I can feel Week 18, Sunday Night Football, Seahawks, Rams for the NFC West as the possible game because I think the Rams are the team they need to worry about the most. Leonard Williams told me today that when I brought up the issue of playoffs, he said from the bye week, we adopted the mentality of it's the playoffs now. And we've seen 3 straight wins. They haven't been consistent. They've been up, they've been down, they've been all over the place. But 3 straight wins since they told themselves the playoffs start now. So we'll see if they can keep it up. If they can, great. But I think they got to worry about the Rams because the Rams have the playoff experience. They've got players who are good enough, and I think the Rams could pick them off.
Yeah, I'm at 4.5, 5. Call it whatever you want. It's not as much as this says they turned the corner. I don't know if they've turned the corner or it's just that this division, it's like 1 week this team looks like the favorite. Then it's like, all right, we're just waiting for the 49ers to take over. That's not looking good. So it's just so back and forth. I don't think any team has kind of stepped up and say, hey, this is our division. It's just every week we're trying to figure out which team, the Cardinals, the Rams, or the Seahawks is going to take control. So I feel it probably evenly across the board with those 3 teams take San Francisco out of the picture for me, though.
Yeah, it seems to be about a 5 for me. The things that concern me about Seattle is they've been streaky all year long, right? They win, they lose, they win. So I don't know that they can kind of count on stuff week in and week out. Defense has certainly been solid here the last few weeks. I think Geno's a heck of a player. I'd like them to be more balanced. Yes. On offense. You know, when you put that burden on the quarterback so much, I don't know, it becomes hard to do that week after week. So I do think the schedule is challenging for them. It's up for grabs in the West. It changes every week.
Not up for grabs in the AFC. Let's talk about the playoff field. Would you say that it is currently set? Only 7 teams have a winning record and all 7 occupying those spots.
Yeah, I'd say a 9. I think it's probably these 7 teams that make the playoffs. Maybe the Colts sneak in, maybe Miami gets hot and they sneak in, but you know, and I might change my answer if Denver loses on Monday night to Cleveland, but assuming the Broncos beat the Browns, feels like these 7 teams are the ones that'll fit. It's just a matter of where's Baltimore going to fit in and who's going to get the number 1 seed, can the Bills overtake the Chiefs, et cetera. Just none of the other teams, you sort of start looking at the standings, you're like, who could even get there? And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I think 9 as well. And if any of the teams that are currently holding wild card spots fall off altogether, that's kind of stuff that, I mean, if it happens to the Ravens, who knows? Who knows? If they don't make the playoffs this year, who knows what happens after the season? As much talent as they have. But I think it's set as a practical matter. And also, it's wide open, except for the Texans. I don't believe the Texans can compete with the best teams in the AFC, but the rest of the teams, I think any of them can beat the others, which makes for a great AFC playoff field.
Yeah, I agree. I'm at 9.5. I just don't see the Colts. Their record is there. Miami, like it's possible. I don't see it happening. And I think this is all the records and how close and how many games behind. But when we're actually watching the tape and watching these teams play, I think these 7 teams are in. I think that's where it stops.
Yeah, it's a 9 for me. And the team that's most vulnerable from a record standpoint is Denver. And they're the team that's been playing pretty well, right? The young quarterback's playing well. Every week the defense is really, really solid. So I like how they're playing. There's a lot of football to be played. We've seen this thing turn year after year. It changes in December. But I like those 7 teams, and I like the last team, the Broncos.
All right, guys, we made it to December. We have Week 14 coming your way, and we've got the Chargers on the road taking on the Chiefs. You know that our coverage will start at 7 Eastern. We hope you join us for Football Night in America on NBC and Peacock, and continue to listen to the FNIA podcast.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.